Hello, this is Raymond Mayfield, and it's so good to be with you today. Thank you for tuning into my broadcast today. I have two counseling sites. One is counselorsofpeace.com and the other is counselorsoftruth.com. And I do counseling over the telephone, and I'd be happy to hear from you if I can help you. And also I have all my videos on www.raymonmayfield.com. rmayfield.com. I've got over 100 videos up there now, and I appreciate you tuning in and listening to me, and thank God for all of you today. I pray for you all the time. I want to talk to you today about the burning bush that happened in Exodus chapter 2. I want to speak about some of the dramatic events that happened in the life of Moses. Moses was in Egypt and he slew an Egyptian. Exodus 2:11 says, "And it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, and he looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew, one of the brethren." And verse 12 says, "And he looked this way and that away, and when he saw there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand." The Bible tells us that they were in extreme pressure. The Hebrew people were in extreme pressure in Egypt because they were made slaves and they were really treated bad. And so when Moses saw that Hebrew being treated bad, he killed him. And the news leaked out that Moses had killed an Egyptian in Exodus 2:15. And when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Moses and dwelled in the land of Midian. And Exodus 3:1, the beginning of that chapter, Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, Oreb. And out on the backside of the desert, in a most unlikely place, God shows up. And I want to tell you that can happen anytime. God doesn't have any preference. God created this whole world, and he can appear in some of the most remote places there is in the world. And don't ever think that God doesn't know where you're at today. In Exodus 3:2, "And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in the flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. And he looked, and behold, it says again, the bush was burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed." What a spectacle that must have been, to look at a bush that was on fire, but yet it wasn't burning up. And Moses said, "I will turn again and look at this great sight. I've never seen anything like this before." And while the bush was burnt, in verse number 3, and that was probably an amazing thing to see. "And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he called him by name, and he said, Here am I," in verse number 4. And God told him to pull off his shoes because he was on holy ground. And when the King of all the ages appears to someone like this, it was sacred and holy ground. Then God told him, he said, "I am the God of the Father. I am the God of Abraham. I'm the God of Isaac, and I am the God of Jacob." Oh, I've come to visit you today. I'm looking for a man that is going to lead my people to the promised land. I need a man. I'll get into that in my next session. But I want to tell you this, for the lessons we've learned in this session today is the Israelites were in bondage in Egypt, and they were seeking a way out, and they were crying unto God. God needed a man to lead them out, and Moses is going to be that man that is going to help lead them out. God knew Moses by name, and when God called him out of that burning bush, he called him by name, Moses, Moses. And thank God he knows us by name. He appeared to Moses in a remote place. God can always show up in a remote place. God knows where we are today. God always knows where we're at today. You say, "My problem is pretty great today." God knows where you're at. All you have to do is pray and ask God for help, and he's right, an ever-present help in the time of need. And God appearing in a burning bush is an amazing thing. Thank God for the great King of all the ages, Almighty God, that appears to Moses. In my next session, I'll talk to you about how God, what He wants him to do. He wants him to go back to Pharaoh, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that. A lot of time had transpired from the time he left Egypt until when he was on Midian. A lot of time transpired there, but God is going to send him back, and God will send us if we'll answer the call. Thank you for listening today. This is Raymond Mayfield talking to you today, and I'll talk to you again real soon.